Things are going to happen in your life. But remember this, life is 10% what happens to you. It's 90% what you do about it. You can stop complaining about life is unfair to me. No, it ain't. It's just life. But you have to go on. You have to find the strength from somewhere. When my mama died, my mama's death was the worst period of my life. I felt nothing like it ever before. When she passed, I thought I was going to die. What helps me handle grief is what the pastor said to me that day. He said, think of all the great moments you had with her. Think of all the things your mother taught you. He said, what I'm trying to get you to understand is, in your darkest moment, think of all the great moments you had with her. Joy and depression cannot reside in the same space. After that, I had to change what I was thinking 2 years ago. I work all the time. And one day I caught myself, because I was just talking about how much I got to do, how I'm always tired and I'm woe down. And somebody sent me something that changed my whole life. The plaque said, I can't complain about all that's on my plate when my whole goal was to eat.
Engage in this one, indulge in it even slightly, and you might as well forget the future, because it's going to forget you. Complaining, whining, a Bible word called murmuring. See, that'll ace your future. It's a deadly disease. If you don't think it's bad, ask the children of Israel. Story says, children of Israel were slaves. God performed a series of dazzling miracles and got them out. Remember the story? Heading for the promised land. From day one, they started to complain. They whined and cried and griped about the food. They whined and cried because it was too far, too cold, too miserable. I mean, they whined and cried for years. Finally, God said, I've had it, trip canceled. They died in the desert, never got to the promised land. Even God himself can only take so much.
A friend of mine, working on a job, expected to retire there, and one day they called him in the office, told him he was fired and he had to leave then. And if you came anywhere near him, he will tell you his story. Even when he got a job, he went on the job telling anybody who would listen, and he always ended with, it wasn't fair. Life isn't fair. Life just is. So we can't even deal with what's fair. I used to be a state legislator in Columbus, Ohio. There was one particular person that all of us knew. We called him Chicken Man. He had a feather in his hat. When he got out of his car, he would walk downtown with a baby carriage with 2 little baby dolls in there and a picture of a woman. All of us used to laugh at Chicken Man. Chicken Man woke up one morning and his house was on fire. And he got out of the window and left quickly, only to get outside to hear his children and his wife screaming for help. And the flames were too hot, too awesome. He was desperate, frantic. Pretty soon the cries stopped. They perished in the fire. His brother-in-law came, grabbed Chicken Man and started beating him. You chicken, why did you save my sister? You're a chicken. He never ever overcame that tragedy. He was stuck. And I say to you, you're going to have people to do things to you. Things are going to happen to you. And the most important thing to do is to harness your will and let it go so you can get on with your life. It doesn't matter about what happens to you. What matters is, what are you going to do about it? Huh? How long are you going to tell everybody at the bus stop and anybody who would stand and listen to you? How long are you going to repeat the same thing over and over and over again? Don't go around telling people what your story is. 80% don't care and 20% glad it's you. They say, I'm glad that didn't happen to me. So I had to let that go. All of us got stories to tell. All of us have experienced some tragedy, and if we haven't, we will. You can permit it to let it hold you down, or you can decide, I'm not going to let that happen to me. Make a declaration to yourself. Declare all out war that you're going to get out of this rut. I don't care how much you work on yourself. There's some times when things aren't going to go right. Why? I don't know why. That's called life. And you have to deal with it. Sometimes your life will be in a slump. I suggest to you that if you are facing a challenge, don't stop. Continue to do those things that you know that work for you. Continue to move. Stay busy, stay busy, stay busy. Find somebody that you can help so you can forget about you for a moment. See, sometimes the best thing to do is to be. Sometimes you have to back up and go within and recharge your batteries. Go away, clear your head, and then come back and look at it from a different vantage point. Don't allow your emotions to control you. We are emotional, but you want to begin to discipline your emotion. You know, weeds don't have to have any encouragement to grow. But if you want to grow orchids or any kind of exotic flowers, there are special processes and procedures you must go through. You don't have to force yourself or motivate yourself to think negatively, to beat yourself up over the head. You don't have to make any effort to do that. Your mind is on automatic. It will do that by itself. But if you want to begin to move into your own personal greatness, you've got to be willing to go against the tide. You've got to be willing to harness your will and say, in spite of this, I'm in control here. I'm coming back, and I'll be stronger and better because of it. This is what you stand for. You're standing up for your dreams. You're standing up for health. You want it, and you're going to go all out to have it. So yes, I'm going to turn this situation around. I'm not going to sit back and moan and cry over what happened and what went wrong and who did what. I'm going to do something about this situation. See, whatever experience you're having right now, it has not come to stay. It has come to pass.
You weren't created to retreat. You weren't created to run from opposition. When you stand strong and fight the good fight of faith, opposition will run from you. Looks like it's going to take a long time to get well. Long time to accomplish the dream. No, get ready. It's going to happen sooner than you think. I wonder what awaits you if you'll just keep walking. Well, Joel, I have some big obstacles. We serve a big God. He spoke worlds into existence. He can get you to where you're supposed to be. When you pray, when you thank God that forces of darkness are broken, God hears your prayers. He sees you believing when you don't see things changing, thanking Him when you could be complaining. You wouldn't be hearing this if God didn't have breakthroughs coming your way. Just because you don't see anything improving doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. And at the right time, things are going to change. My challenge is stay in faith until you see the suddenly. Keep on walking. Tune out all the negative voices and tune in what God promised. The reason you can't see a way is because it's not going to happen naturally. God is going to do it supernaturally. Don't try to figure it out. Just keep believing. Keep doing the right thing. Obstacles are about to come down. You're going to make it into your promised land.
Anything worthwhile is going to be uncomfortable. Any goal that you want to achieve that's worthwhile in your life require all-in effort.
All in. We've got to be all in on our ventures. If you're in a game, make sure you're in it all the way, and then that game will be your game.
We all have weakness. We all have gaps. We all have issues. We all have struggles. And the first step to working your weakness is admitting your weakness. How many know denial is dangerous? Just because you ignore it doesn't mean it's going to go away. But many times we conceal things and we cover things up because we're concerned that if we'll expose it, we're going to be embarrassed. Have you ever felt exposed before?
So if you want to do something, if you thought about something you want to do, take it head on. Decide that you're going to start looking at it, start doing research on it, start tackling it, start becoming involved in whatever and wherever it might lead you to begin to explore the possibilities in that particular thing that you're seeking, so that you can begin to learn all you can about it. Decide that you're going to face it, that whatever shortcomings you have, that you're going to strengthen yourself there. Whatever training that's required, that you're going to go get that training. George Washington Carver would say, do what you can, where you are with what you have, and never be satisfied. S.B. Fuller used to say, and you heard Joe Dudley talk about, always strive to be more than that which you are. Yeah, don't get satisfied with yourself. Always know that wherever you are, you can enjoy more, that you deserve more. Why you can't begin to live life on your terms. Always something there to block you, to keep you where you are, and keep you from beginning to develop your true greatness. Always some fear. How do we handle it? If you've been using the fact that you don't have enough money or you don't have the education, take it head on. Go get the education.
But look at what they've done to you. They've made you an employee. And they told you where you can be employed and where you cannot be employed. And then they restrict how far you can rise in that employment.
Living my life on my terms. That's important. Not to give up on your dream, not to give up on yourself. Now, are there going to be some moments when you want to give up? Yes. Will there be some moments when it's going to seem like it's impossible? The disappointment that you're experiencing, that you're going to say, it's not worth it? Yes, that's going to be right there for you. It's going to be in your face.
When you start grinding, when you start waking up early, when you start keeping your word to yourself, to your boss, when you get going to 120, when you all in by any means necessary, you start seeing stuff and you start experiencing stuff and you start having stuff that people who are not doing that, they never get. And I promise you, when I go out, I will be the best version of me. When I go out with my son, with my daughter, and with my wife saying, our husband gave 120%.
And until your thinking change, you are contaminated leadership. I've never heard such a level of teaching on leadership. Why? Because unless your mind changes, you will never become a leader. Attitude determines your limitation, which means that your belief system determines how far you go. You can never lead beyond your attitude and your belief system. And that's why your life is what you think it should be and exactly what it is. Attitude is the manifestation of your personal philosophy.
So you've got to decide, wait. Even if things don't work out, even if I experience defeat or failure, that does not make me a failure. It's a difference between failing and being a failure. If things don't work out, if you don't produce the results you want, that's all. But don't confuse who you are with the results that you produce.
Be transformed by changing the way you think, because my thoughts control my life. Your feelings don't shape your life. Your beliefs do. And it doesn't even have to be true. If you believe it, it's going to shape your life. And a lot of you were taught things as a kid about you that just weren't true. And years later, you're still acting on false information.
The process of building self-confidence is actually very easy, believe it or not. Self-confidence is self-trust. Self-confidence is building a reputation with yourself that you keep your word to you, that you keep the promises you make to you. Somebody with self-confidence has a reputation with themselves that I do the things I say I'm going to do. Build your self-confidence, and the greater and greater your self-confidence get, it minimizes the impact self-doubt has on us. It's important because you have to understand one thing about the doubts and the negative thoughts you have about yourself. These are not your thoughts. You weren't born doubting. You weren't born discouraged. You weren't born thinking negative things about yourself.
True leadership is self-discovery. True leadership begins with an individual discovering something about themselves. That's when it really begins. And you will never become a true leader until you are introduced to yourself.
Don't do that. Be quiet. Sit down. Be a good boy. Be a good girl. Maybe it was criticism you received as a little one that you may not even remember to this day. Those were thoughts that were placed in you and given to you by an external source at some time in your life. It could even be our parents. It could have been a school teacher. It could have been ridicule at school from other children. But when you were young in your formative years, these negative thoughts about yourself were planted in you by an external source. When I meet someone who is not self-confident, I know this is someone who has consistently made promises to themselves they've not kept. They've started a diet and done it for a while but not kept it. And so they have a process and a habit in their life more often than not of not keeping the promises they don't make to other people. They don't keep the promises they make to themselves.
It's impossible for you to have continuous success without having self-discipline in your life. Impossible. And my greatest challenge as a leader is your greatest challenge as a leader. And that is, every day, keeping people climbing. Because they don't want to climb. They want to coast to success.
I just want to tell you, don't let this chapter that you're going through make you in your story. Don't let depression lie to you and tell you that you're not enough, that tells you that there's no more better days, that tells you that your best days are behind you, that tells you you're a nobody, that tells you that you're better off dead. Don't let it lie to you, because it's been lying to you so long that you're starting to believe that's true. You're starting to live that out.
And they just kind of hope that if they're at the right place at the right time, something wonderful will happen to them. Everything worthwhile is uphill. All the way. All the way. Not partially uphill. And the challenge that we all have is we don't mind climbing uphill for 3 or 4 days, as long as we can coast for a couple.
Stuck in there as a firm belief. That's why we have to guard our beliefs so preciously, because our mind goes to work on finding these legs, these references, which are real experiences in our life, to prove to us that that belief is true. And so although you may believe it to be true about you, these doubts and negative thoughts you have, these were not your original thoughts.
Of all the subjects we've covered so far and are about to cover, none is more important than covering the disciplines for success. What's at the core of achieving the good life? The major key to the good life. The major key is not in learning how to set goals. It is not in learning how to better manage your time. It is not in mastering the attributes of leadership. Every day in 1,000 different ways, we are trying to improve ourselves by learning how to do things. We spend a lifetime gathering knowledge in classrooms, in textbooks, in experiences. Now, if knowledge is power, if knowledge is the forerunner to success, then why do we fall short of our objectives? Why, in spite of all our knowledge and in spite of our collective experiences, do we find ourselves aimlessly wandering, settling for a life of existence rather than a life of substance? There may be many answers to this question. Your answers may be different than your associates or your spouses or your friends. While there may be many answers to this question, the fundamental answer is the absence of discipline. Applying all that we know. That's the key word, discipline, self-discipline. We might add one more word here, consistent. Consistent self-discipline. It doesn't really matter how smart you are or how much you know if you don't use it. It doesn't really matter that you graduated magna cum laude if you're stuck in a low-paying job. It doesn't really matter if you attended every seminar that comes to town if you don't apply what you've learned. Better than knowledge is applied knowledge. And once we've applied our knowledge, we must study the results of that process. Apply our knowledge, study the results. Refine our approach. Finally, by trying and observing and refining and trying again, our knowledge will inevitably produce worthy results, admirable results. And with the joy and results of our efforts, we continue to apply, to learn, to observe, to fuel our ambition with the positive reinforcement of continued progress. Pretty soon, we'll find that we're swept into a spiral of achievement, a vertical rise to success. And the ecstasy of that total experience makes for a life of triumph over tragedy, dullness, and mediocrity. But for this whole process to work for us, we must first master the art of discipline, self-discipline, consistent self-discipline. It takes consistent self-discipline to master the art of setting goals, to master the art of time management, to master the art of leadership, to master the art of parenting and relationships. If we don't make consistent self-discipline part of our daily lives, the results we seek will be sporadic and elusive. It takes a consistent effort to truly manage our valuable time, or we'll be consistently frustrated. Our time will be eaten up by others whose demands are stronger than our own. It takes discipline to conquer the nagging voices in our minds, the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of poverty, the fear of a broken heart. It takes discipline to keep trying when that nagging voice within us brings up the possibility of failure. It takes discipline to admit our errors and recognize our limitations. The voice of the human ego speaks to all of us. Sometimes the voice of ego says that we should magnify our value beyond our results. It leads us to exaggerate, to not be totally honest. It takes discipline to be totally honest, both with ourselves and with others. Be certain of one thing: every exaggeration of the truth, once detected by others, destroys our credibility and makes all that we say and do suspect. As soon as a business colleague figures out that we tend to exaggerate, guess what? They'll always think we exaggerate, and they'll never quite hold us in the same regard again. The tendency to exaggerate, distort, or even withhold the truth is an inherent part of all of us.